Hi everyone, I'm Bhagya Senanekar representing subgroup B7. We are presenting a brief overview of globalization of finance, which emerged as a concept in the early 1970s. The presentation will further cover areas such as capital flow trends, theories, financial crisis, pros and cons, the impact from the pandemic, and concluding with our viewpoint. So, before we look at what globalization of finance is, let us quickly look into what globalization is. Because globalization of finance emerged due to the broader concept of globalization. As we all know, globalization in summary is a growing interconnectedness amongst countries over trade, economies, cultures, flow of investments, and many other things. So financial globalization is a global interconnection that occurred with unrestricted cross-border capital movement, which allowed economic agents to access diverse financial resources. Evolution occurred due to the diverse reasons, but preliminary with the dissolution of Bretton Woods Agreement, where a collective international currency exchange regime was practiced. Financial globalization is measured based on the net capital inflows and outflows. Capital flow between nations through foreign direct investments, equity, bonds, loans, and acquired assets in foreign currency. The concept of financial globalization reached South Asian regions in 1990s as a phenomenon for development. As shown in the figure, it massively benefited all major countries in South Asia. So now analyzing the capital flow trends, global capital flow trends has been on an upward trend since its inception, as shown in the figure, and specifically a rapid increase was observed within the year 2000 up until 2007. However, as the global economy underwent a severe financial crisis in the year 2008, with the housing bubble burst, the global capital flow significantly reduced by 66%. Now, my colleague Vishmini will continue the presentation.
Now let's talk about the evolution and the theories related to financial globalization. And under that, we are going to discuss about three theories, which are the neoclassical growth theory and the modern portfolio theory, then market imperfection theory. And in the neoclassical growth theory, the theory outlines three factors which are necessary for a growing economy. These are labor, capital, and technology. However, neoclassical growth theory clarifies that temporary equilibrium is different from long-term equilibrium, which does not require any of these three factors. Further, accumulation of capital within an economy and how people use that capital is also important for economic growth as per the theory. Technology advances is an important factor which leads to the economic growth. Hence, the production function of neoclassical growth theory is used to measure the growth and equilibrium of an economy. And as you can see in the function, where the Y denotes an economy's gross domestic production, C represents its share capital, L describes the amount of unskilled labor in an economy, and finally, A represents a determinant level of technology. And moving into the next slide, which is the modern portfolio theory. This is a practical method for selecting investments in order to maximize their overall return within an acceptable level of risk. A key component of the modern portfolio theory is diversification. Most investments are either high risk and high return or low risk and low return. Therefore, the investors could achieve their best results by choosing an optimal mix of the two based on an assessment of their individual tolerance to risk. Then moving into the next theory, which is the market imperfection theory. This is a trade theory that arises from international markets where perfect competition doesn't exist. In other words, at least one of the assumptions for perfect competition is violated, and out of this comes what we call an imperfect market. And we know that a perfect market is not really attainable. Even in the United States, there are imperfect markets. What is interesting about market imperfection theory is that it is an international trade theory, and it tells that in international markets, certain protections are necessary to safeguard the interest. Market imperfection theory also states that various trade policies can correct for some market imperfections. And examples of government-instituted corrections are the taxes, tariffs, quotas, etc. And moving into the next area, which is the emerging trends driving globalization of finance. And under that, there are several emerging trends which leads to the globalization of finance. And the technological advances are in top of that. As an example, we can highlight mobile financial services where most of the financial transactions happens in online platforms, where transferring of deposits or doing payments, etc. within milliseconds across all over the world. Then the trading of stock exchanges throughout 24 hours into 7 days, and this also could be done across the world. One of another emerging trend is the cryptocurrency, which is a decentralized digital currency that relies on cryptography for security. Cryptocurrencies run on a distributed public ledger called blockchain, a record of all transactions updated and held by currency holders. Units of cryptocurrency are created through a process called mining, which involves using computer power to solve complicated mathematical problems that generate coins. And now let's look into the global financial crisis, which happens during 2007 and 2008. And this crisis comes due to the availability of cheap credit, where US Federal Reserve reduced its interest rates up to 1% in order to improve consumer spending via the banking system. And simultaneously, the lending standards were relaxed, leading to a massive housing bubble with subprime mortgages. The relatively cheap credit allowed general public to obtain affordable housing loans, despite initially the loans were dispersed to prime mortgages, as in people with best credit histories, in order to maximize profits. Further, banks allowed credits for subprime mortgages. And this led to a bubble burst as subprime mortgages defaulted loan prepayment, hence causing financial institutions were holding trillions of dollars of worthless investment in the context of mortgages. And the Congressional Budget Office of the US estimated its dollars of 1,488 billion impact from the crisis due to loss of wealth and income during the recession. So to discuss further, with you.
Hi, I'm Shehan, and I'll be taking you through the cases of success and failure of financial globalization. To start off with a success story, a country that has experienced significant socioeconomic turnaround over the past decade is Ethiopia. At an average growth rate of 11%, Ethiopia has made tremendous progress to become one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And it is poised to become the largest in East Africa. Ethiopia's integration into the world economy has specific features. It is highly dependent on export of a few goods, import of many armaments, and benefits largely from foreign remittances. The openness and favorable policies towards foreign direct investments is a significant factor contributing to its economic success. Over the past year, in an effort to attract foreign investment, the government has passed new investment laws. There are also limits on foreign control and rights to private ownership and establishment, facilitation of business setup and operations, as well as bilateral investment agreements and taxation treaties that has contributed largely to its ambitious growth goals. Ethiopia is also a member of the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, or the MIGA, and has bilateral investment and protection agreements with countries such as China, Denmark, Germany, Finland, France, Netherlands, Sweden, and Switzerland. And to take you through a failure story of financial globalization. So all the financial globalization has been promoted as a vehicle to financial success for countries as well as organizations. A mounting body of empirical evidence shows that the effect of financial globalization have been overall mixed. Where it has only brought limited positive effects, while it has also increased the risks to business organizations. Globalization increases the competition for organizations as a technological war is becoming more and more severe with time. Therefore, in the current world, the strongest companies with the best technology is ability to adapt to financial globalization, and they would survive in the market. The same happened to the famous mobile phone leader Nokia back in 2009. Nokia was the best mobile phone producer with a market share of 50% around 2007. But all of this was lost due to their failure to adapt to financial globalization. The senior management of Nokia did not acknowledge the competition and the tendency of customers to reach more affordable and convenient products. So this caused them to hang on to their own and traditional way of catering to customers without capturing the rapidly changing technology in the world. Easy to use user interfaces, applications, and overall functionality of its competitors such as Samsung and Apple was far better than Nokia. However, Nokia still believed that the brand could continue. Ultimately, when they realized their failure, it was far too late. Another famous mobile phone brand, BlackBerry, faced the same problem and they also were unable to adapt to financial globalization of the world. So these are two classic cases of financial globalization failures that we have discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahan. Let's talk about the advantages of financial globalization. The development of financial sector is the one of that, and you can see with the globalization, the financial market becomes more deeper and sophisticated when they integrate it with the world market. So, and also at the same time, the investors and borrowers can, without bounded to the Sri Lankan context, they can investment in the overseas, and also they can borrow the money from the other the financial markets as well. So, and also what's obviously happened is they can invest in the different opportunities without bounding for the local context, and that will reduce the risk as well. For example, in even the one sector failed, even the one country failed, their investment on another country will remain same, and they can keep earning from that. So, and also the facility free flow capital, and also the create job opportunities and technology transfer is really important and good advantage that coming from the globalization. Let's talk about the disadvantages. Not always the advantage that coming from the globalization, then also the disadvantages as well. Like that with the globalization, the country is going to be exposed to these external shocks. Like in 2009, you can see the financial crisis that even that though that was started from the USA, that was spread across, that shock spread across the all the countries. So that's one of thing. And also the increase the financial volatility and crisis generation is another big disadvantage of the financial globalization, and also the fall in the financial market, and also the impact of external factors. Like when countries bounded for their local context, in such cases there are a limited number of external factors going to be impacted, but other than that, when they exposed to the international market, what's going to be happen is, even though there are a lot of factors going to be impacted for our company's financial flow, so that's going to be really a resist factor that has to be considered. And also the cross country financial contingents is another one, another disadvantage we can highlight. So let's talk about the COVID-19 impact. What was happened with the COVID-19 for the global financial market? So like the escalate like conflict between that had with the USA and China. You can see the USA and China as the main players of the international financial market, and that's going to be impact for the countries like us as well. And also the block capital chain and emerging market is another thing that we have to highlight with the COVID-19 impact. And also the most important part is the cross-border capital flows are more sensitive to the policies response to the COVID-19. For example, the lockdown policies of a particular country directly impact into their bilateral financial interactions with other economies. Like these get really highlighted when these are last for a longer time. So, and what are the recommendation and conclusion? We can say that the government should be intervene with the monitoring and controlling method, that they have to provide the more effective monitoring method to control these situations up to some level. And also the law and timely law enforcement and those regulations are really important, and upskilling the people's skills is really important. And the trade liberalization is another important part. Like trade liberalization is like removal or reduction of the trade barriers between the two countries, so that we can use these to liberalize these barriers, like to reduce these barriers, to enhance that, to get the maximum out for the financial globalization. And also another important thing is innovation. To as a government, as the companies, they have to tend to use the latest technology to adhere with the international market. So that is really important to take the maximum benefit from the globalization. So thank you very much.